The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
This is Africa Diaspora Connect.
Join us as we take the journey from the motherland to America.
We share our experiences and learn from them.
Here is our host, Kibathi Gaturu.
Welcome. Happy December to each and every one of you. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving last week. This time around, I'm practicing social distancing. It's a one-man show, as you can tell. We're doing okay. Now, where does our journey take us this time around? You know, every session we try and figure out, configure it, what's something that touches our society? What's something that we need to talk about and bring to the forefront? And actually, within our chat group that I spoke about on my last episode, I had an amazing epiphany through Tony Ngare, who got to introduce me to this amazing lady that I'm going to introduce shortly. Her name is Cyndy. But what is Cyndy all about? Let me give you a little overview of my little research that I did, then I'm going to introduce her. All right. What is autism spectrum disorder? All right, ASD. What I've heard, it's a complex developmental condition that involves persistent changes in social interaction, speech, nonverbal communication, and restricted repetitive behaviors. Okay, what I've heard is the effects of ASD and the severity of symptoms are different in each person.
Yes.
I heard it's usually first diagnosed in childhood, with many of the most obvious signs presenting around maybe 2 to 3 years, but some children with autism do develop normally until toddlerhood, when they stop acquiring or lose previously gained skills. According to the CDC, 1 in 59 children is estimated to have autism. Autism spectrum disorder is also, 3 to 4 times more common in boys than in girls. And many girls with ASD exhibit less obvious signs compared to the boys. It's a lifelong condition. However, many children diagnosed with ASD go on to live independent, productive, and fulfilling lives. Now, the crux of our session today is many African children with autism are hidden away at home. Sometimes, listen to this, I didn't bring this up. Sometimes tied up, almost always undiagnosed. Efforts to bring the condition into the open are only just beginning. The biggest difference is who gets diagnosed and when. Children with autism in Africa tend to be diagnosed around maybe 8, about 4 years later on average than their American counterparts. I mean, more than half of African children with autism are also diagnosed with intellectual disability, compared with about 1/3 of American children on the spectrum. So this suggests that only the most severely affected children are being picked up. Those who are diagnosed often speak few or no words and require substantial help with everyday tasks such as eating or going to the bathroom. By contrast, in the United States, the largest diagnostic increases over the past few decades have been on the milder end of the spectrum. It's information overload, but I'm going to have my sister here, Cyndy, who's going to just break it down for us as she takes us through her journey, and specifically the Kenya Autism Alliance. Cyndy, welcome to Studio 21, the home of the Africa Diaspora Connect. I'm your host, Kibathi, and I am so glad and honored to have you on this amazing topic. Thank you, my sister. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to have this conversation, at least for the Africans in diaspora. And my name is Cyndy Muchine, and I'm the founder of Kenya Autism Alliance. And I really like the recap you've done. You've done all my my forework right now, which is an awesome introduction to what autism is. So I have an 18-year-old son with autism, and he was diagnosed in 2005. At the time, autism was only prevalent in 1 out of 168. So you can tell now that he's 18, there's 1 out of 59. That's a huge jump. That's a really huge jump.
Wow,
and that's really only for parents that have come forward. Okay, so there's
Okay.
parents that have not even come forward, or maybe they haven't been screened. And I'm just talking about the US at least.
Okay.
So as far as Africa is concerned, we are still trying to find the right tools to do the screening. So if you live like in a place like Nairobi or Mombasa, then at least you have some kind of access. So if you're in remote Kenya, then who's screening your kid, right? So that's another issue. So, and then on top of that, so me living in the US, I was able to get that diagnosis when he was 2, just in time for early intervention. So the sooner you do early intervention, of course, the better for your kid. But not everybody has access to early intervention, right? So just to jump back and forth, as far as stigma is concerned, right? In Africa, who wants to be told the child is quote unquote broken? Nobody wants to be told, oh, your child doesn't have speech, or by age 3, 4, they're like, why isn't your child talking? So that's been the toughest part for parents to come out and actually acknowledge that their children are not walking or speaking. It's not been very easy. And Africans, we're very close-knit families, yes. But when it comes to our kids and their developmental delays, we kind of are shy to talk about it because, of course, you're embarrassed that your child is not speaking. And that's why some of the parents don't come forward. Even with Kenya Autism Alliance, it's a platform on Facebook, but there's a lot of quiet parents. They're probably constantly comparing their kids with other people and not really willing to share about their journey. So I've been that vocal parent because I just didn't want to sit on the sidelines. As soon as he got the diagnosis, I jumped on early intervention. We did speech, we did occupational therapy. And honestly, not every child gets to do occupational therapy. Some kids don't need occupational therapy. So, but at least for speech, we jumped on speech. We had the opportunity to do speech and just getting all the practitioners on board. So it's not every day that you find a parent stepping forward and saying, oh yeah, I need my child to get services. It's just the whole stigma of, I don't want people knowing my child is quote unquote disabled.
Let's talk about you and honestly, just your passion, the ability to really look into yourself and say, hey, listen, I'm going to do something about this. What about your journey? I mean, how seamless was it? How challenging was it for you to come to terms
seamless?
with? Yeah.
Oh boy. So at least for the diagnosis,
Yeah.
it was an easy thing for me. I'm just a very positive person.
Amen to that.
So I just told the developmental PD, okay, what do I need to do now? And they said early intervention. I said, sign me up. Took my child. And a lot of people are like, did you see the signs? I didn't see any signs.
You didn't?
Honestly. He was 2, and I'm like, yeah, he's 2. He'll catch up.
So who saw? They saw the signs just during.
His pediatrician was like, what's his vocabulary like? And I was like, what do you mean? He's 2. And, growing up in Kenya, you're told, oh yeah, your boys are slower than girls. So you're like, yeah, of course they'll catch up. And his pediatrician was like, he should be at least at 25 words. And no, he didn't have 25 words. So I went home and she said, just do early intervention. And thank God we had insurance. And so they covered the early intervention. So we did that for a while until he transitioned into the school district at age 3. So then the school picks up the services from there.
Now, does your son have a sibling, an older sibling, right?
Yes, she's 22.
So they're 3-4 years apart.
They're 4 years apart. She's 22. Yeah, he's 18.
So basically, okay. So what's that like as a parent? If I could start from that perspective, having an elder child, everything is copacetic. Then all of a sudden, bang! Okay, there's some signs here. What does that do to your psyche? What does that?
Again, every parent is different. And I always say every child, regardless if they're neurotypical or autistic, all kids are different.
Exactly.
So you handle them the way they come to you. So if I had a disabled child or child on a wheelchair, you're not going to handle them the same as you handle your neurotypical. So you kind of have to switch gears like overnight, right? You don't have a choice.
You have to
and then,
shift.
of course, my older child is like, okay, so now all the attention is on this one. What about me? What about me? So there's that gap where you're like, I have to still take care of this one versus, this one needs my attention.
And that
more.
leads to my next question. Exactly. So you have 2 children.
Yes.
How do you now make the older sibling or the younger sibling, whatever the case may be, understand that, hey, listen, I'm giving more attention? How do you work that? How do you work that?
you somehow become super mom or super dad and figure out like a balance, right?
Yeah.
Get do like what they call respite. Find a position where you can take your child with autism to a camp.
Okay.
Drop them off, which I did from like 9 to 3. And then I took my daughter with me to the mall. We did like a mommy-daughter time.
Understood.
And so she felt included, because otherwise she just felt neglected. Because at that time you're like, okay, services, speech, you're running for OT, you're running for ABA therapy, you're running to music therapy.
Yeah.
And all that, she's just a spectator, like, okay, what happened to me? Why am I not getting all this attention? And that makes them actually resent the sibling sometimes, because they're getting the attention. And it's not really that you're not doing your best. You're doing your best, but of course, the older child, younger child gets shortchanged. To put it lightly that they get shortchanged. Yeah, yeah. And then if you're a single parent, which I raised my kids by myself for a while, and it was tough. And sometimes people think, oh, yeah, you're in America, you have services, yay. But you see, I always say you could be in the greatest country and you still lack that community around you. It's tough. But then when you're in Kenya, you have a maid, you have house helps, you have support. Yeah. But even still, maybe those house helps don't even have the ability to support you as far as like services, but at least you have that backing.
Yes.
At least they can watch your kid to get like mommy time or daddy time,
Understood.
So foreign country, you're still navigating the rights of your kid, can be tricky.
Wow. And kudos to you right there. Kudos. Now, does it run in the family? Is it hereditary by any chance? Do you know of anything of that nature?
So a lot of people always ask, is autism in the family?
Yeah.
So some families, honestly, nobody knows the cause of autism. Everybody has their own speculation, right? Everybody wants to say it's environmental. Some people said it's a vaccine. Some people say it's who knows, right? But honestly, there's no known cause, and they're still trying to do research to see what causes autism.
Do you think it's more prevalent in the Western Hemisphere than it is back in the motherland? What do you think?
I think it's prevalent everywhere. It's just the diagnosis, the tools.
Okay.
So growing up, I knew a couple autistic kids, but I didn't know what it was called. Okay. You see, there was no terminology and there was no diagnosis. Okay. They just fell through the cracks, but there was still that support. We were all nice to each other, but we didn't know what the diagnosis was. Or like intellectual disability, we didn't know what that was. So you find a nonverbal kid, but they're doing their chores, they're doing their activities of daily living, brushing their teeth, taking a shower, and it was perfect. But then you don't know that. Then you're later on in life, you're like, oh yeah, so and so had autism, and we didn't know what that was. Yeah. So I would say, the diagnosis.
I've heard of this thing called a spectrum,
right?
And what have you. You're going to walk us into that. But is there a cure? Does it ever go away depending on what part of the spectrum you're at, by any chance?
No, it doesn't go away. Okay, so a lot of people, because it's a developmental disability, autism is invisible, right? If you see my son, you can't tell that he's autistic until he starts doing certain things. You're like, oh wait, he is autistic. So you find people saying, oh, your kid doesn't look autistic. What do you mean? And you're like, wait, it doesn't have a look. So people are always looking for a look.
Understood.
It's kind of offending because you're thinking, wait, what look are you looking for?
Yeah.
There's no look. So unlike other disabilities, you'll see someone in a wheelchair, that's a visible disability. So nobody needs to tell you this person is disabled. But when it comes to autism, it's tricky because it's invisible. And then what was the other question?
No,
is there a cure?
Yeah, I was asking.
No, there's no cure, but the symptoms, the more you do therapy, you see certain symptoms diminishing slowly.
Okay.
And then that's why people say, oh, my kid got cured. And I'm like, I really wouldn't use that term loosely.
Understood.
Because it can really be misleading, at least in my opinion.
Let's go back to PC, political correctness, all right? And from an individual like myself who really doesn't know much about autism, how do I approach a parent like yourself? What are the do's, what are the don'ts? Or you just don't bring it up? Is there any code or anything of that nature?
Well, okay, so it depends on how close you are to this person, right?
Okay.
So I've had friends who are like, when I first met you, I thought maybe your child had autism, but I didn't know how to ask. It's okay to say, do you need help? That's a good approach.
Understood.
Instead of, hey, have you seen a therapist? You need to go see a therapist and all this. And I'm like, wait, back up.
Whoa.
Why do I need to see a therapist?
Whoa.
Already in the hindsight, the parent is like, I think I know what's wrong with my kid, but then I'm taking my time. There's that denial phase. You're like, I don't think there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
But then if you come at me with, have you thought of going to see this? And I've had people come at me and say, oh, you need to change his diet. You need to. And I'm like, no, I don't need to do all that. I'm already working with a therapist. So it's good to approach them with, do you need any support? How can I help you is the best question.
Understood. How can I best help you?
Mm-hmm.
We live and learn, folks. We live and learn.
Yes.
Walk us briefly through these different spectrums. I understand there are 5 of them. Could you just briefly touch on a few and tell us how different, how comparable they're, and what they really mean?
So times have changed, right?
Yeah.
When my son was diagnosed, they gave him the label of PDD-NOS, which stands for Pervasive Developmental Disorder. And then back in 2013, the American Psychiatric Association merged all the spectrums into one, and now it's called Autism Spectrum Disorder. Okay. It used to involve, hold on. So there were 5 different ones.
There's Asperger's.
Yeah, they've been put under one umbrella.
Okay, all right. So
Tourette's, and then there's Asperger's.
Okay.
So Asperger's is like the high functioning. And so that can be misleading when you say, oh, my child is high functioning. So they can do certain things really well. And then they can have deficits, like in their social aspect.
Understood.
So you have to be super cautious, because if you tell somebody in the street, oh, yeah, my child is high functioning, so they'll assume, oh, yeah, they're good to go. And then you turn around and they're struggling socially. Mm-hmm. So now that's why they combined everything into one, autism spectrum disorder.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I'll say this for a fact. I mean, I work in talent acquisition, and as part of our diversity initiatives, we actually do the best that we can. Diversity is broad, and diversity means a lot of things to a lot of folks. But we have hired some really amazing hires. They fall within that spectrum. But this young fella is like a data scientist and doing things that honestly you and I cannot even remotely seriously. And so it's like I said, I'm totally new in the field, but in my line of work, I mean, I have had the privilege of having to work with an individual who falls within that spectrum, who's doing amazingly well and working for Fortune 35. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of positivity down the road. But I think the key thing is early diagnosis, and that's something I think is imperative.
Yes. Yeah. So some people say the earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah.
And then some people say, well, you say that just because your child is verbal. And I'm like, I put in 100% effort, 100% therapy. I did all the hard work. It was not a piece of cake. So as long as you are hands down, hand to hand, walking your child, working with your kid, the therapist, get involved. Otherwise, what do you expect in the future?
No,
right?
I get, but I think I can even tell just through the airwaves, your positivity is contagious. And I can tell that. And that goes a long way in terms of where you are with your son. And I think it says a lot about you as an individual, you as a parent. But not very few people are like you, though. That's the
right.
The
and that's why I said, Kibathi, that's why I said in the beginning, not everybody will have my personality, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is like happy, go lucky. Yeah. There's some parents who are like, okay, my kid was diagnosed. What? I'm depressed. Yeah. There's some people who do go into depression, which I completely get it. Yeah. But see, here's the thing. When you do go into depression, which I am totally not judging, your child is losing time.
Yeah.
As soon as you get that diagnosis, yes, you can grieve that situation don't grieve too long.
Yeah.
Get on the bandwagon, get your kids services. The sooner the better. Because once you get depressed, say you get depressed for 10 years, you've lost 10 years where your child could be getting services. And then the hiding. I really thought at least people in Kenya hide, but there's a lot of Kenyans here in the US. They're hiding their kids. They're not coming forward to get services. And I'm like, you're doing your child a disservice. You're really doing your child a disservice. So I try to reach out, but I can't make you get your child services.
No.
I can only share information and say, hey, this is what I did when he was 2, when he was 5, when he was 10. So
I didn't do the research on this one, but I'd like to figure out the number of divorces that come out when your child gets, especially we men. I can see an issue there where men will be like, I can't deal. I didn't do any research. Is that realistic? Does that happen? Do you know?
or there's like, they say 76 or 86% divorce rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine you're parenting and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you wished your child was not
Yeah.
broken.
Yeah.
I put it in quotation. You're expecting your child to be the next soccer player or the next best football player. And then you're told, oh, hi, by the way, your child has autism. Immediately that's dropped. The parents are like, Quisha, I'm done. But you can't do that. Your child could be the next Einstein.
Absolutely.
My son he's built like half of UMass Lowell on my dining room. He does like clay and Play-Doh art.
Wow.
And he all 3D models. But then you see he did a lot of OT. I never gave up on him, and he's a computer wizard, all those little things. They could be the next best laundry person. Don't limit your child. I say, don't box these kids. They're brilliant. Just give them just one opportunity. And next thing you know, they might be the next president.
Wow.
of
You
this
know what?
country.
This is amazing. Let's go back to Kenya Autism Alliance. Tell us about it. Tell us, and what can we do? Let's learn us. You're going to give us a link that my producer is going to be posting out there. Kudos to you. I mean, you're contagious. I'm loving this. Just hearing your energy in of itself. And I'm being very candid with you. Tell us about Kenya Autism Alliance.
So after all the years of getting diagnoses and running around helter-skelter, I asked myself, if I'm going crazy in a foreign country, what about a Kenyan? What are they doing for services? So I created Kenya Autism Alliance. Like in my sleep, I woke up the next day, I was like, I'm going to share my story. I posted it. I didn't even edit the story. And I said, here you go. And then parents were like, wait, you're not by yourself. I'm here, and all that. And just it morphed, and parents started joining, friends bringing friends, aunts, uncles, cousins, name it. Everybody's on KA. We're up to like 4,000 families now. So there's a lot of connection with schools and resources, therapy centers. And just last week, we had, actually this past Saturday, we had 228 families log into 4 different workshops. And so I've partnered with a few professionals here in the US and some in Kenya also. And they've been doing OT, ABA, and skills training, skills training.
What's ABA?
So applied behavior analysis.
OT is occupational therapy.
Occupational therapy, sorry.
Okay.
All this terminology.
Bear with me. So your 4,000 strong families, are they afflicted? Do they have children who are afflicted, or do they just
They have children. Some are aunts, some are uncles, some are friends, some are cousins that are joining because the parents are like, nope, I'm in denial, I'm not joining. So they come and get resources and share like schools. I created a database of schools for parents, and now we keep adding, removing, and just really networking with the families. And now they've even some have gone on to create their own foundations. Some have created businesses out of it. Some have gone back to school to empower themselves. And so this is what we do every single day.
Wow. So
a lot of work.
Here I am. I'm a single mom scenario. My son was recently diagnosed. I'm going through my phases of denial, anger, whatever. What can Kenya Autism Alliance do for me? What do I get? What do you think is really? How is it going to really affect me? How is it going to really now make me get out of my quote unquote my cocoon? What exactly, and how do I go up? How about the approach? Can you walk me through a scenario like that where I'm still just deep?
You're still kind of in denial.
Yeah.
A lot of denial. Okay, so at least with KAA, these friends, neighbors have kind of introduced KAA and said, just join this group. Trust me, you're going to love it.
Yeah.
And then there's positivity in the group. I've set rules where there's no bullying, there's no insulting, all that. So they join and they're like, oh my God, where have I been? Because there's just that empowerment, cheering. Doesn't matter if your child brushes their teeth for the first time, uses the bathroom, potty trains for the first time. We celebrate all those mini milestones.
Understood.
And then we just encourage families, anyone that's a single mom, single dad. And I know it's always single moms because moms are kind of left by themselves. Yeah. And then there's also single dads because some moms have walked away. So I don't want to sound like it's only like single moms. There's some dads that have been left by themselves too. So we just encourage and say, hey, where do you live? My first question is like, where do you live? Mm-hmm. So I find out who lives closer and then they can network. If it's having coffee together or just a phone call and forming this mini clusters of networking is what we've done. So and then just encouraging them to stay positive.
Yeah.
Absolutely stay. Because when you're like, whoa, yeah, this, whoa, yeah, me, it really doesn't get you anywhere. And there's a lot of that, which I'm telling moms, dads, don't be whoa, yeah all day. Mm-hmm. You're not doing your child any service. Mm-hmm. No, not at all. You're just really boxing them and I'm just not a warrior.
I got it.
And warrior doesn't get you anywhere, you know?
There's no two, I can tell.
And it's a hard conversation to have.
I get it.
They're like, yeah, you can't just be saying, I can't be warrior. Yeah, you can for a bit.
And you've lived it. The thing is, you're not coming in just as a professional. You've lived it. You've walked it.
I'm still living it.
You're still living it. Every waking moment of your life, and more power to you. So where do we find you other than Facebook? Where else are we finding you? How do we interact? How do we find you?
So Facebook, I have Facebook. We have a Facebook page and a group.
Was there where do we go on Facebook? I'm bad.
I can share the link with you, and then we can.
And Ben is going to upload that for me. Ben will upload on that on the screen as well.
Yeah, but we're just on Facebook now, and we have a website which I need to revamp anyway.
Okay.
But most interactions happen on the Facebook group.
Understood.
We also have a Twitter. If anyone wants to go on Twitter, I guess not so many people use Twitter because it's not private. But the group is a private group. If anyone wants to reach me, obviously my cell phone number is there. They can call me, they can WhatsApp me anytime. So I live in Lowell. In case anyone is in Lowell, they can reach me, my cell phone. I also work with the Lowell police, which, by the way, my son used to take off. And so I introduced him to the police. And now we have a really good relationship. They know he doesn't take off anymore. So that's one of the signs
when you say take off, just layman's language, what do you mean when you say cease to take off?
They run away from the house. They elope. They open the door and
they disappear.
Oh yeah.
And how old?
He was I want to say 6.
And what's the longest time you missed?
He was gone for maybe 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
One time a lady found him. A second time my brother-in-law found him. Wow. And you're just busy doing laundry, and then you're like, oh wait, the door is open. Why is the door open?
That brief moment. Bang.
Yes.
Wow.
I've known kids that have taken off and they've drowned. Kids with autism, most of them like the pool, they like the ocean, they like the pond. So if you just Google autism and the pond, autism swim, you'll find devastating stories. So I always tell parents, teach your child how to swim. Teach them water safety, at least the most. Teach them how to swim.
You're a godsend, Cyndy. This is, like I said, a brand new topic to me. I know of children who have autism. I know of parents who have children with autism. I know how hard it is for very many of them to really bring this up and discuss it. It's hushed. It's behind closed doors a lot of the times. But what you're doing God's work. And we honestly, with all due respect, honor you. Let us know what else can be done. Like I said, let's create the awareness. What's your end game before we leave? What's your end game with Kenya Autism Alliance? What's your end game? What's your end game? What are you looking to really get out of it at the end of the day?
Get every child empowered. Get every child, give them a chance to be the best that they can ever be. And parents, get empowered. I really want parents to not be all sad and gloom. I've been told I glorify autism, but I don't. I glamorize it. I really don't glamorize it. I'm like, don't box your kid. Your kid is brilliant. Give him one opportunity. That's it. If they're going to be the next best tailor, hey, seamstress,
Go for it.
Go for it.
Go for it.
We don't all have to look alike. Sameness is boring. I'm sorry.
It is. This is what makes the world go round. Folks, we're
Exactly.
hearing from here in the Africa Diaspora Connect, coming direct from this amazing, amazing lady. I am so glad we made the connection here, Cyndy.
I
cannot
know.
thank
Thanks,
you
Tony Gary.
enough. And Tony and Gary, man, thank you for this amazing award that
yeah.
you've just
She
given us
introduced me
here.
to that.
And we're going to talk about this on our chat group. Once this thing airs, it's going to air.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first week in December, the first Thursday in December. We're going to air. We're going to have a lot of discussions with this. So just be ready with a barrage of questions, and thank you so much for your courage. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Oh my God, this is terrific, guys. Folks, listen, please make sure you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon, that ding dong, you know it, to be notified whenever there's a new episode released. You know the email, africadiasporaconnects@gmail.com. And I'm yours truly, your hostess with the mostest, airwave near you, Kibathi Wagaturu. And thank you, Cyndy. Cheers.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, Ben.
Have a good day.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.